Hello and welcome. You're listening to Nails and Hammers, a podcast where we talk to people about their journeys and understand how they solve problems in their day to day lives. Our guest for today is Sairee Chahal, who is the founder and CEO of Sheroes. We chat with Sairee about her education, her entrepreneurship journey from starting NewsLink to FlexiMoms to Sheroes, how she stays at the top of her game, and finally, ask her advice for aspiring women entrepreneurs. We hope that you enjoy listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed talking to Sairee, and it's time to listen and learn. Hi, Sairee. Welcome to the Nails and Hammers podcast. So, first of all, how's the lockdown treating you?
Well, I think we all have our lockdown phases. It's like the moon, it goes up and down. Uh, so, same here. Lockdown's been a mixed bag. I think this is the longest, I've ever been home. I'm sure there are a lot of people like that. But it's also a time that sort of, showed us a lot of muscles we didn't have. So, I think that's really, what's happened. And of course, I think a couple of things have been interesting. One of the things we did during the lockdown was we actually put together a COVID helpline. Actually, there is a COVID helpline, but there are volunteers from the Sheroes community who are running it. So that's been like one of the, I think, the nicest things that I saw, come to life during the lockdown. And apart from that, I think, of course, I miss seeing my colleagues and I miss office. So I bought myself a whiteboard at home. It's a huge whiteboard, basically. So
Oh,
at least I get some semblance of office. But all okay, yes.
Lovely, lovely. Let's start with a bit about your journey. Where did you grow up? What all did you study? And there's this amazing fascination with the Russian language that you have, right? Would love to know about that as well.
Right. So I grew up on steel plants, and that kind of explains my Russian fascination. We always had Russian engineers on the plants, and there were always Russian families. And, those are also different days. Soviet Union was still alive. There used to be these Russian magazines and, book fairs. And so a lot of cultural exposure to Russia and that sort of led to the fascination, but also uh, I think Russian literature is one of the deepest literatures in the world.
oh,
So I got to that's what I actually studied at college. So,
mhm.
so it's not just a
Wow.
fascination; it's actually a real relationship.
Oh. So then, you did your MPhil in Russian, or was that in something else?
Phil was in international relations,
Okay,
but my master's is in Russian. Uh,
okay.
and I grew up in a place called Muzaffarnagar, which a
Hmm.
lot of people know as Riot City, and that's exactly how we know it as well. When we were kids, we used to mark Riot vacation every year. Obviously, we
Oh,
didn't know riots were bad, so pardon us. But
hmm.
uh, look, I think 80s was a peaceful time to grow up. Life was much simpler. There was no internet. Your TV had one channel. Everyone had the
Hmm.
same car. You only shopped maybe twice a year. There was no food you could order from outside. So
Yep.
no smartphones. You had to book a call. Obviously, I sound very old right now. I'll stop.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And you also went for your MBA post your MPhil, right? What made? Sorry.
I didn't go post. I have always done many things at the same time. And contrary to popular belief that focus is great, I have always done like parallel threads. Uh, and So there was a time I was running my first startup, NewsLink. I was an MPhil student at JNU, and obviously JNU and
Oh,
startups don't go together, but
yep.
did build one. So, you know, and then, of course, my parents used to live in Ghaziabad, and IMT was right opposite our house. So I ended up doing my postgraduate diploma in business management from there.
So then you were studying full time at Ghaziabad and then
I'm
doing your
studying.
MPhil.
Yes, I was actually. My MPhil was supposed to be full time, but thankfully, an MPhil is a research job, so you don't have to attend classes. So I managed to actually daytime. I would sort of actually do do NewsLink, which was my startup.
Oh,
It was, like I used to literally live in the office, open it, close it, a small team. and I used to live in JNU. That's where I used to be. And weekends I used to go attend classes at IMT.
And then speaking of NewsLink, how did that journey start?
So that journey is, like, to be honest, you can call it luck, chance, fluke, serendipity, whatever you want to call it, but it was totally unplanned. And I think totally random reference. Somebody, said, "Hey, there's this guy in town. He's looking for people who speak Russian." So that was the reason I want to meet Deepak, who's really the person behind NewsLink. It was his money, his idea, but I built the company. So I think that's really sort of the deal there. And he said, "Look, I've sailed all my life." I went to meet him at TGIF Friday in Vasant Vihar. There were not, there are not many places to meet back then. And I went to meet him. He came with his daughter, who's 8 or 9. So anyway, very nice guy, Richard Gere looks, very graceful manners, and he brings his daughter for a meeting, like totally like brownie points all over the place. So, but he said, "Look, I've been a sailor all my life. I have really done well, but I've missed good news from home. And sailor depression is a really big industry problem because you're on sea without any connection to the home base. So I want to solve this, and I'm looking for people to help me. And I want to set up a company in Delhi, and this is my plan that we'll set up an office in Cyprus and in Delhi, and like we will build a newspaper that will go to ships every day, and it'll go for every country, a country that is represented on the ship." So honestly, when I met him, I really didn't know what he was saying. Like, I didn't get the technicality of it, but he seemed really authentic and he seemed very, very genuine. And by the end of the meeting, I was like, "Okay, I'm signed up. So what's next? Tell me, what should we do?" So we met next day again at his apartment, which was lying vacant for like many months. It was all full of cobwebs and dust. And he took me to that place and he said, "This is going to be our office."
Oh,
So we started work the same week, so NewsLink was in business. And
Great,
we ended up
great.
building a company that actually had 2/3 of the shipping industry as subscribers, in about three years.
that's great.
Wow. That's a massive market share to have.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
still runs, by the way. Like, I mean, it's 20 years since it still runs.
Wow.
So I guess it was a real product that was needed. They say build products people want.
So you exited from NewsLink, and then you started a consulting firm, right?
Yeah.
And that exit happened when exits were unheard of in the ecosystem in general, right?
I didn't even know what's an exit. Like, we just got to know that a Malaysian buyer has bought the company, and okay, whatever. And I think also I'd done. Look, the NewsLink was very, very intense. There was a period in time when I went to work every day for 400 days. So,
Oh,
so we had an office manager who once came and told me that, you don't have to come to office for next 10 days because otherwise the labor ministry will catch us.
Yeah.
So yeah,
wow.
so like early on, you're young, you have the energy, and like obviously, and yeah. So I exited NewsLink. Then I worked briefly for a company called Hydrick and Struggles, which is a Chicago-based leadership consulting firm. That was my exposure to a very large company with big structures and systems and processes and 56 offices. A very different listed company, NASDAQ listed company, opposite of NewsLink basically. And then I worked with them. I worked for the Russia practice. I worked on the board of directors practice. I had the guy who hired me, Barry Gary, he was awesome. I actually joined because of him. He was incredible. He actually then went on to work with the UN Peace Corps. He moved to Africa after the stint. So amazing boss, basically. And then I think very inspiring to work with people like that. And then he sort of, again gave me a lot of freedom. I got to work on super exciting projects within the company. So Hydrick does this very marquee piece of research, which is around board of directors. I got to work on that project. Like, again, before entering
nice.
Hydrick, I didn't know what board of directors is. And by the time I got out, I deeply knew how boards are run and
Mhm.
how do you read SEC filings, and like how do you sort of run diligence on boards. So it was obviously intense and like very different. But like again, I learned a lot, steep learning curve. But
Mhm.
big company, not much room. Like after NewsLink, you have to ask for permission too many times for everything. Like even if you have to stay late in office, you have to send a requisition that I will be working late. And
Oh.
as the founder, I figured like, this is really not where I would like spend a lot more time. The place was awesome, but I had to sort of, move on. Then I set up my consulting company, literally across the road from Hydric. And then basically that was the time, I had seen some startups, I'd seen some corporate life. I had a lot of my circle was entrepreneurs. I think at that
Mhm.
time, obviously there was nothing called an ecosystem and startups. We didn't know any of this, what are startups and what is ecosystem. I didn't know venture capital until much later, honestly. So
Mhm.
I think uh, but people were beginning to do stuff. Rediff was an inspiration. Ajit Balakrishnan was still like a
Yeah,
hero. uh,
relate.
yeah, and Naukri was already
Rediff.
there, and India Mart was there, and Deep was there. So there was a generation of companies. And then I set up a company to work with growing tech startups, typically to work with a founder to help them scale systems, processes, operations, marketing, hiring. And we ended
Mhm.
up working with some very interesting clients, DGM India, a couple of family businesses that were reinventing themselves. And yeah, so some amazing work on ground.
Oh.
Boutique set up, 20 people, cash flow positive, nice life for
Mhm.
5 years. And then
Huh.
I sort of, while I was still at my consulting company, we built, this platform called FlexiMoms, which was really the
Mhm.
basis of, the seed where Sheroes really sort of, started. And I think 2013, I decided, 2012, I decided I'm going to sort of like, shut down the consulting business and move to, run an internet business. By that time, I knew that like, I have to build something large and build something in digital. I mean, it was not even called digital back then. And sort of do more than what I'm doing. So
Mhm.
Sheroes really sort of, I mean, the idea of Sheroes started in 2012 December. That's when I quit my consulting company. Took about 3-4 months to sort of flesh the idea, and then Sheroes actually launched in a year later in Jan 14.
And so, what was the original business model by which Shiro started?
So Sheroes' first model was very simple. It was a jobs and careers community for women. And at that
Mhm.
time, look, internet is very different. There were fewer women online. It was all metro-centric users. Uh, so like in our business plan, the target addressable market was 1 million women.
Oh.
So
Right.
it was a different time and space. Obviously, all numbers have become supersized, right?
Mhm.
But the model was simple, that you build a safe space for women online. You build, so the principle was pretty much the same, but the idea was to connect women to work, to connect them to counseling, career
Mhm.
counseling specifically, to connect them to resources. We had stuff around back to work, so everything that spans the trajectory of a woman, you know
Mhm.
flexible work, back to work, growing in your career, resources all around that. So it was a community actually, but working with enterprise. So it was an enterprise model. Companies would pay us to do stuff. We did quite well. We had about 20,000 companies who signed
Oh.
up. We grew
Wow.
pretty nicely. But I guess, the market changed. Like, by just when we were sort of building it, the market sort of, like blew up.
Mhm.
And then we went back to the drawing board again and relaunched as the Sheroes that exist today.
Oh.
All right.
So then, in a sense, your competitor was Naukri.com.
It was, but honestly, we were not really competitors because Naukri is really like, our that's our challenge always, right? We only serve the women's market. So
Oh.
honestly, we were technically not we don't want their users, and I don't know whether our users really even make sense to them. But we were selling to the same customer. That was common. We were selling to HR, we were selling to hiring managers and stuff like that. So that was the common factor. But look, Naukri is still like a more mature company. We are trying to solution here a little bit, create new kind of platform. But yeah, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I would love to know more about the early days of Sheroes, right? So how did it started? Who were the early hires? How did you go about building the team? Did you raise any angel funding of sorts? Would love to know more about that.
So Shiro started because I went to have breakfast with BSS, Vijay Shekhar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was like, Vijay, I'm thinking of this, and like, what do you think? So आप ऐसा करो, आप कल से ना लैपटॉप लेके मेरे ऑफिस आ जाओ और वहीं से शुरू कर दो. So and I've known Vijay for a while, so that's what
Yeah.
I did. I literally started going to his office, and they had extra space back then. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
so so first it was just me, and then I went around and asked, like, is there somebody, I need somebody to help me set up and stuff. So my colleague Lakshmi joined us, and then I had somebody from my existing team at my consulting company who joined us. So like literally phone book team, honestly. You tell people, you ask around. Core team, most of the team still works at Sheroes. They've really built the company up. And, so I think there's just 5 of us in year one, and we're still building the platform. We floated the Sheroes Summit. That's what gave us our seed money. So we didn't raise money actually until the first 18, 19 months of the company.
All right.
And because we had free office space, and we didn't have a lot of expenses, and I had some savings, so like we managed to sort of get by. And we instituted the Sheroes Summit, which actually funded our year one. So we raised sponsorship, we raised some cash, paid ourselves, and kept building the platform. And then once the platform was live, there were users, there was something, then we raised our first round.
I mean, that's a heck of an idea to raise your first round, right? I don't think startups today can do that.
We were very happy. I've always been, like I always say, like the resources I came from and the resources we have today, like there's a world of a difference. So anything you think you can do, you can possibly do.
You mentioned like going to.
The Sheroes
Sorry.
still runs, right? Of course, this year is COVID, but it became a property, and it became our way to sort of, like reach out to women and just sort of engage with our community. So yeah, it worked out.
And the scale must be immense today.
Yeah. I mean, it's grown now. Now we do it like, it's a month-long, traveling show all over the country.
Oh wow.
To like, 7-8 cities, maybe more sometimes.
Nice. You mentioned like going to the drawing board in 2016 and then redesigning Sheroes. And now Sheroes has a marketplace, has a social media, has also a financing option available. So how did you scale and how did you find out the product market fit?
Actually, very unconventionally. So to be honest, I didn't know the term product market fit for a long time. Like at least I knew, the fundamentals of business, but I didn't know the term, right? So what we really did was that we established some fundamental principles at Sheroes, and those principles are our guiding light. Like they're not written on the wall, but they're there. And one of which is that everything we do has to benefit women directly. Basically, a community is a community if people come there minus a transaction. Like if people only come for a transaction, it's technically not a community. They're your buyers. Or if people come there, so there are 3 parts that make a community, right? There is obviously trust. The first trust is like a big factor. Second is empowerment, or the act of adding value. And the third is alignment, common purpose, universal. We are all here for the same reason, right? Like why is Reddit such a strong community, or why is tech communities like Python developers because they all care for that one particular piece. Why are gamers a strong community? Because they all love the same thing.
Yeah.
So I think one things we did was have these principles in place, right? And then what really transpired was, like, in fact, when new recruits come in, like we have this internal joke called Mahilaon ki Seva Karo. Like it's just a way to sort of convey the sentiment of Sheroes. And as a company, company, we always kept that sentiment higher than everything else. We also kept our monetization on a very staggered pace. Like, look, there was because we were building a women's platform, there's a lot of pressure, sell saris to women and sell lipsticks to women. It was fine. That's not the business I was building. To me, the context of growth and safe space for women was very, very important. And what we really did was establish some of these principles, and obviously we built the whole community up, and we knew, like, look, one of the common things that is across women all over the world, and not just in India, is that they want better lives, they want safer experiences. And in India, it's particularly, it translates to "main kuch karna chahti hu," right? Like, every woman wants to do something, prove her identity, build her own little place under the sun, and we kept that at the center of it. So monetization was really staggered. It wasn't really put on high rails initially. We took the time to build the community. And now, look, it's like, it's like your Gymkhana membership. You never give it up because you trust this place. Trust is hard to find. For women, it's even more. So we still have users who were like users in 2015, people who signed up. But obviously, they have grown now. They become champions, mentors. They run businesses. And we were always very open and experimental about it. So obviously, in traditional VC terms, we were like a big failure. But the truth is, we built a real community, and a lot of this has grown because women tell women. And the other thing that's unique about Sheroes is we didn't buy our way through our user base. We built it super organically. We built it with a lot of trust, and trust takes time. You can't buy trust. So we stuck to our fences, and now, now experimentation is much easier. Like, if you see, all our business lines are less than 18 months old. What works 2 years old, social commerce is maybe 5-6 months old, loans is even lesser. But guess what? We've created a space, we created distribution, we created engagement. People come because they want to come here, not because we send them, we spam them with notifications to say come here. Like, it's not the traditional strategy, it's really organic. So we start with that, and now, and there are different cohorts of users. There are women who are looking for work, there are women who are looking to micro entrepreneurs, there are women who are looking for capital, there are women who still use the helpline. Like, I was interviewing this guy this morning for a role at Sheroes, and he said, look, I really want to work at your company because my mom was in a depression and she used your helpline, and she's fine now, and like and she's found like a life for herself. So the truth is, look, one of the things we never did, we never measured ourselves against an impact organization, and that's a separate story because I didn't want to sort of get stuck in that cycle. But the truth is, there's a lot of real impact that's happened. Women have found work. 2 million women plus have found counseling, free counseling on the app. We have done hundreds of offline events. We kept building our community. The amount of effort that's gone in seeding this community with a lot of love and care and genuine interest, and not just because at some point we're going to have a dollar machine. We're going to have a dollar machine, but the truth is, we said, let's make it work for them first. So even the way we're thinking about a business is that it has to first work for them. Women find work, women become entrepreneurs, women find capital, they find telemedicine, they find counseling. And we, as a company, and for a platform that generates almost 5.5 million pieces of content, I don't have a single content writer in the company. We have moderators, and I have one group editor. It's a team of 6 people that runs this large operation. We're just about 40 people in all of these, we're a small team. So we've stuck to our guns. We don't worry about slow. We don't worry about being unpopular. So,
No, I mean, definitely you're popular. And Sairee, I mean, that's a very powerful story. Literally, and I'm sure the adoption for Sheroes and has been increasing during this whole COVID scenario. So what's next for Sheroes? I mean, what else can we expect from Sheroes now going ahead? And the adoption in the tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities has also grown up, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. So look, adoption's clearly up. We started February with 16 million users, and by the time July, August came, we were at 21 million users. That's the
Wow.
fastest we've grown. And,
Wow.
and look, as a company, we don't spend money. We sort of, we rely on organic. Therefore, we don't. So one of the things we never did as a company was report DAO MAU, because DAO MAU is a very anxiety-driven number.
Mhm.
I know people, investors love it.
Yeah.
And I've had lots of fights about it. But my idea for community is a community that stays long. So for example, the community that I really like is Amul. Once you're
Mhm.
part of Amul cooperative, you're a member for life. You
Yeah.
don't.
Mhm.
Amul built it in an offline world. We're building the same thing in an online. So,
Mhm.
and our users stay in our system. They do a lot, and now we are adding more layers to it, right? So we are saying,
Mhm, mhm.
okay, so we're building a Sheroes trust score, a membership score.
Wow.
Almost like mapping everything they do within Sheroes to their advantage, and obviously we're adding to our remote work business this year. From 10,000 women, we will go to 100,000 women. We're
Wow.
adding to social commerce. Again, from 100,000 women, hopefully it'll become like a million women. Uh, we are focusing mega on micro entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs. Uh,
Mhm.
so these are sort of big areas for us, because look, this is what India needs. We need women to be part of the active economy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and look, we're a poor country. People still don't have social security, jobs. Women have it even worse.
Yeah.
So we just want to sort of be in a business that has a lot of natural uptake than be in a business that needs artificial sort of pushing,
Right.
Mhm.
and it has its own network effect, you know. So and that's the whole thing, right? Like community is at the core of it, and every model is an extension. So like today we have remote work, we have micro entrepreneurs, and we're setting up a new platform called Sheroes Money, which is
Mhm.
you can call it a neo bank for women or a community bank for women, that
Mhm.
Mhm.
to help women with small loans, micro savings,
Mhm.
uh, and financial products. So that itself is a lot, honestly. Like, in fact, now I feel there should be a seeding of ideas around the platform. Basically, the Shiro stack should allow other people to build products on it. Like we can't
Yeah.
build on the product.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's next. That's probably a 21 project for us, But we're working on the Sheroes stack. We will open up the Sheroes ecosystem to the community, for
Mhm.
developers, for partners, for like we created a Sheroes login, which is a gender verified login. Now we're going to make
Wow.
the login open for anybody who wants to build a women-only space. You're building a telemedicine app for women. You're building, a fashion app. You're building whatever you're building. Use that platform. So I
Oh.
think these are directional items, but obviously we want to reach more women. We still have a lot of room to grow.
Mhm,
Mhm.
mhm.
So that's what we do.
Yep. So Sheroes is an inspiring journey, not just for the startup ecosystem and women, but like for people like us who want to start up someday. So now we want to talk more about Sairee as a person.
Yeah.
So what's one mistake you made during your journey that you would not make again?
Look, I think I always felt, and in hindsight, I always felt I was not aggressive enough. I should have
Mhm.
been more. Uh, and like sometimes I go to startup events, or sometimes I go to events where there are a lot of founders. People who built nothing are bragging like all over the place. We've done so much of work, and we're like, why did we do all this? Like, were we this stupid? So we never, like, we built so much, and like
Mhm.
there are actually literally 6 startups that we've built within this company. But
Mhm.
like, because we were so busy and we never went out and tom-tommed about it, uh,
Yeah.
and like all of that, I always felt like I should have been a little more aggressive. But I
Mhm.
guess these are hindsights.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, what's your purpose in life?
Look, I think it is purpose is a very big term, but I definitely feel that this is really an opportunity ahead of us. Like, it presented itself and everything sort of lined up. You know, it's the universe conspiring, right? So I just hope that we can create something that moves the needle for women. Like, for example, when I started Sheroes, work from home was a dirty term, only work from home scams. And I've seen that change happen in front of my life. And, like last 5, 6 years, it's become like the coolest thing, right? The companies like White Hat and Byju's and you know, they're all sort of, selling work from home because it's become cool. And obviously COVID was like the biggest tipping point. My sort of purpose is really to sort of one, do this job well, and of course, look, really go to bed at night peacefully. I think, with nothing on my shoulder, really, and honestly, uh, I, you know, I'm a Sardarni. So when I was a kid, we had no religion at home. My grandfather was a communist, so we grew up with literally no rituals. In fact, it's only now in this new India I'm learning, festivals and rituals and all of that.
Mhm.
One thing that sort of stuck with me was, Gurbani says, "Karam karo, van chako, and naam japo," which is very simple. That do your job, share your gifts, and live mindfully, right? So I think that's really the purpose. That hey, like you have some time, like
Yeah.
you live with your own kind of peace.
That's really deep. So my next question is, I mean, in terms of your journey, right? You started your first startup in '99. You've seen an exit as well, right? You started a consulting firm. You've literally grown with the whole Indian ecosystem in terms of the startups and the internet journey as well, right? Now with Sheroes. So how do you learn and unlearn things? I mean, there's a massive journey, right? So.
Yeah, you one is actually learning every day. Sometimes, I feel I worked for like so long, and I think a lot of my workday is still the same. You basically every day is something to learn, right? Like these days I'm learning a lot about RBI and NBFCs and banking and like, all of that. And there's always like a new sort of challenge. The good thing is, I think as a kid, I look, our source of knowledge was books. There was nothing else. So, and in fact, even today, I've been on the internet for 20 years. I still feel, like a kid in Candyland. Like, that's what internet means to me because it's so powerful. There's so much one has, available, and so much, like between, your books and your reading material. So to me, it's still, I think I still have the same awe about it, about knowing new things, and um, and I think what's happened is because I've done so many different things, I have uh, built a sort of a range, right? Like between the kind of things I'm interested in, they range from like venture capital to, women's communities to helplines to mental health. And in my head, they're all connected. Like they're not
Yeah.
different things. And then, what happens is unlearning happens automatically. Like my first job was at a media company, then NewsLink happened, but that world has fallen away, right? Like I studied Russian, but obviously I'm not in touch. It's nature's way, right? Like autumn leaves fall away. So
Yep.
part of your knowledge sort of becomes redundant on its own, even if you, and then of course, I think it's same with your skills. Like, like there was a time when, I used to be executing, and now most of my time goes in actually just working with, my teams or, other people or investors. So the nature of work also keeps changing and you learn, new ways. So yeah, I think there is a natural built-in process, and if you follow a process, I think what commitment does is it helps you build a process. It takes away the fear of emotions. It takes away distractions. So once you commit to it, I think the process gets built up. Like your process evolves as you keep doing something over a period of time.
I mean, you're so busy. I mean, all throughout your life. So how do you unwind?
Well, I find time to unwind every day. Actually, I go for a walk. I do my yoga. I listen to some stuff on SoundCloud. I think the thing that allows me to make time is I'm not a very social person. I have no friends. I mean, I have friends, but like I don't have friends, right? Like I don't get invited to Diwali parties a lot, and I don't throw parties for people and stuff like that. So that's something I've never had, like, uh, And otherwise also I have a really radically simple life, honestly, like it's distraction less on its own. I don't have to like really do a lot. So I think it's just conserving energy more than time. I think the thing about busyness is that you have to enjoy that busyness, right? But if it becomes a drag on your energy, then you feel low. I'd like to say, hey, like this is not sort of charging me enough. Uh, so it's a little bit of that, really, for me. And then of course I read. I still I think read a ton of stuff. At some point, I want to write more. I don't do that enough. I just feel I need a little more space for reflection to write, which I don't have today. But yeah, those are like really simple things. They cost nothing actually.
Uh, what does work-life balance mean for you?
Actually, I don't think it exists, and I particularly don't like the term because, like, look, we're sitting here at 10 o'clock midweek, talking. So, like, and honestly, I'm not even aspiring for that. That's not what I have, optimized for. What I've optimized is, uh, honestly, a lot of parallel threads to run efficiently. For me to engage, with a lot of like I still take time every day to talk to the community on Sheroes. I'm still
Right.
invested. Women still tag me every day.
Mhm.
Uh, plus I do a lot of stuff like outside of Sheroes as well. I sit on a board. So honestly, I'm not looking for that kind of balance. To me, balance is just being, having uh, enough semblance of order to be able to manage your day. And I think a lot of this comes from directional clarity, your own sense of commitment, and also I think just prioritizing. The thing about prioritizing is you can't have too many things. Like anything
Yep.
more than three is not really priorities, right? Like
Yeah.
so I don't think work life balance is really possible,
Mhm.
because you'll always be sort of struggling. The thing is to sort of say, you know where do I want to hook myself, which wagon I want to hook myself to. So and that define the directional sort of clarity for you.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Right. How can we get more female founders funded in India?
We desperately need that, and I
Yeah.
think look, I think the big gap today that is that a lot of women have ideas, but look,
Right.
not everybody finds a deeper Kamran to build a news link, and
Mhm.
not everybody, and the times have changed, right? Like, the ecosystem is very different. I
Yeah.
think we need a lot more pre-seed checks for women, and we need help at that stage. A lot of what
Right.
VC and 500 did for
Yeah.
Silicon Valley, we
Yeah.
need the
Mhm.
same cool you know, ecosystem moves. We need the movers and shakers to sort of come and do this. In
Right.
fact, I'm
Right.
working on a project. If all goes well, this might
Oh.
happen. But look, it's not like they're not smart women who want to build companies, but there are too many barriers. And if there's no encouragement and the ecosystem's still like very unwelcoming, you can't get hit from both sides, right? Like
Mhm. Mhm.
so you need somebody to
Yeah.
sort of propel you up, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
all these, the big Airbnbs in the Silicon Valley ecosystem happened because, there was a propeller system in place. So we
Right.
need a propeller system. We obviously need more early stage checks. We need more women founders to sort of, also a lot of role models, right? Like hopefully,
Mhm.
there will be a women led unicorn that sort of set the tone for this. Um, because right now we're not there.
Mhm. And lastly, what advice would you give to a young female founder today?
Start up. Like, it's so much easier to start up today than actually to find a job. You can start up overnight.
Right.
And people should do,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
fact, like I'm very envious that, people are building such cool companies at, such fun pace and such hustle. I love it. Like, uh, and like, what a good time to be in the ecosystem, right? Like,
Right.
and
Right.
there are so many new instruments. So it's a great time to build a company. It's also look at the opportunities. Everything is broken, and there's so many sort of cohorts of users you can serve. So yeah, I think I would say, and of course, ask for help. Look, had I not gone to VSS to have that breakfast, I would have never started Sheroes, right? Like,
Mhm.
and of course, I have done that at least 1,000 more times, and not just that breakfast meeting. Look, I
Yep.
mean, every morning when I come to work, I'm basically asking somebody to help me sort of get to somewhere. and then pay it forward. Like I also do the same, but so nobody has built a company on in their own head or in their own space. It's really an act of understanding that we're all sort of community creatures. We need each other.
Right, right. So start now, ask for help, and have great friends. Right, that's yeah.
Or at
Uh,
least like be in the ecosystem sort of.
yeah. So let's move to the final section, wherein we have some rapid fire questions. So whatever comes to your mind, just go for it, right?
All right.
So you mentioned you have, I mean, yeah, there's a community of a lot of micro entrepreneurs coming up, right? Your favorite startup started by any Sheroes or FlexiMom alumni?
Actually, there's Gyanu Veda, which just raised funding from Fireside.
Oh
It
wow.
started on
Oh.
years. Rachna is Sheroes champion. Lots of them. There's Rakshita, who runs a food startup. There's Hurdle Health, Serena Richards. Lots of them actually. Like
You are a role model for a lot of people, but who are your role models?
Lots of them. Look, I think clearly, I don't know if you've heard of Stephanie. She was actually the first woman in the UK to set up a company which employed only women as coders.
Oh.
Oh wow.
This is 30 years ago, really, in the 70s, actually, 80s, early 80s. So, she's a rock star. She's on Twitter, by the way. There is Cindy Gallop, who's really like a rabble rouser, unstoppable, love her. There is Alicia Castillo, grew up in Chile and Venezuela, literally dirt poor, and now runs Sandhill Angels.
Wow.
One of the perks of my job is I've met so many amazing women. Honestly, my list of role models is actually a CRM. So, I think, and then of course, uh, Kirtika Reddy, she's
Yeah.
somebody who's awesome. There is obviously uh, there's Ashwini, love her. We sort of, I think, share a good wavelength there. And then, of course, look, there is also a generation of women who did exceptional work, right? Anu Aga, these are stories I think
Yeah.
this generation doesn't know a lot. But, ran and built Thermax, which is an engineering company, and like really took it global, right? Like, uh, really, really impressive, I think, by all measures. And I think there is a whole generation of women. I love the Seva team, uh, I think Seva is super exceptional in terms of what they've done. I think it's a really long list.
Yeah, some really legendary names there. You mentioned you read a lot. What are you currently reading?
Oh, I read like 4 5 books at the same time. So I'm
Oh.
reading this book about this monk. So I read a lot of stuff around spirituality and generally like a lot of Brahmin stuff. Um, it's called A Cave in the Mountains. It's a book about this monk, first female Buddhist monk who came from
Oh.
UK and lived alone in literally the caves, to meditate for like 10 years.
Wow.
So I'm reading a book about her. Then my Kindle always has like all sorts of books. I'm reading Rishad Tobaccowala's new book. Uh, you know, and then I just uh, I'm always reading. Like, in fact, I'll just sort of pull out my Kindle. I think there are like 15 books that are live at any point in time. But yeah, so I read everything. I read business, I read spirituality. I read
Right.
less fiction now. I wish I'd read more. In fact, I just reread. One of the lockdown things I did was join the Dostoevsky Club
Oh.
online on Twitter, and then we had Zoom calls, and we used to read Dostoevsky novels. It was just one of those things. Yeah.
Yeah. You have had a long career, so what else would you be if not an entrepreneur?
I don't know actually. Public policy maker, maybe.
A Russian professor, maybe.
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I know like I was set up to be one, but no, I just need like, I figured I'm a big canvas person. I need like big. So public policy excites me. Law really excites me now. In fact,
Mhm.
one of my sort of new fascinations is with the law now. I think. Um, yeah, I think.
Any interesting hobby that you picked up during COVID?
Honestly, no. Just sort of, I think what COVID did was it really gave me a sense of what being at home is like. I've never been home, like literally.
Right.
I'm like the perennial hosteler who comes back at night and brushes her teeth and goes off again in the morning. So honestly, I used COVID to one just be at home, and then of course it was a time to just sort of like catch up on sleep. To be honest, I think
Mhm.
years of sleep debt got paid in COVID. And then, yeah, I think mostly this.
Any like female founders that we should call on our podcast?
So many of them. Like you should call Shuchita, you should call Ashwini, you should call Meghna who runs Credit Watch. Uh, Tons of them, I think. I'm happy to share more names on the email as well.
That would be great. That would be great. Cool. Let's one last question. If you have to step in into someone else's shoes, right? Who would that be?
Right now, Donald Trump.
Uh, yeah.
I think I might save the world.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, just before a call, we were chatting, and Kushal is in Seattle right now, so he was just sharing what's happening there, right? So,
I know. I think I'd love to sort of, like literally run away with his shoes right now.
Yeah. So that's it from the podcast, Sairee. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much and all the best.
Yeah. And we hope that you enjoyed as much as we did talking to
I
you.
did. I did. Thank you so much and thank you for your patience.
Of course.
thank you. You've been generous with your time, so thank you again.
No worries. Take care.
Yeah. You too.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.